So tonight we're joined with Tristan Hamlin. He's one of our own. So he is one of our top producers from last year. And I would say he's probably one of our stats extraordinaire. So I suppose I just wanted you to say hi, Tristan. And if you don't mind kind of telling us a little bit about your background, I suppose, and how you got into real estate, just so we can kind of get to know you a little bit, I suppose, as we kind of go through the content.
Okay. Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
everyone. I started work at 14 at a McDonald's over in Oregon. So I worked there until 18 through high school. And then I got a job at Best Buy, which I eventually got into mobile phone sales as an AT&T representative. So I worked there for 3 years as I went to college full time as well. Ended up getting an associate's degree in entrepreneurial management. While going to college, two of the favorite classes that I took were micro and macroeconomics. And then I got into real estate. So I've been a realtor for over 5 years now. And yeah, I just love numbers, stats, whatever, because the numbers don't lie. So I always like to look at those and share those with my clients. And it helps me write offers. It helps me prepare CMAs. It really does help out a lot to know what's going on in the market.
Yeah, and you got your managing broker's license too,
I did.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's like one more credential, I suppose, for you.
Yeah, one more. Yeah.
Yep, I know. So, why real estate? I mean, for someone like you, I mean, you could have gone anywhere with entrepreneurial kind of background, but I suppose, where's your heart in real estate?
Yeah, well, it was for three main reasons. The first was that you could be your own boss. So being an entrepreneur, has always been important to me. I've had many other businesses before this one, when I was growing up and stuff. So that was important. And then I also really wanted to help people build wealth through real estate because I've seen how my parents have built wealth through real estate. So I really like helping other people do that, first time home buyers especially. And then the other one was to invest in real estate myself. So I believe that's a great path to build, generational wealth. So became a realtor.
And it's been history since then. So cool. So I wanted to have Tristan share his screen, you guys. This is actually kind of the meat and potatoes, I suppose, of tonight, where he's been working with some of our other agents within Best Choice, and it's like word got back to us, and I was like, we need to share this with everyone because it's so valuable to understand how the statistics are working, how you can pull numbers within our Northwest MLS, but then also how can you interpret those numbers to your clients. So I'm hoping, Tristan, you can share your screen, and
Yeah.
he's going to show you, I suppose, the nuts and bolts of what he would use and how you can kind of implement those with your own business as well. So yeah, so take it away, Tristan. What do we got?
All right. So can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So I got Matrix pulled up, which we all should know how to do. And in Matrix, there's a lot of stuff that you can look at. I monitor different listings, all that stuff. But the most important thing, which is why it's pretty much in the center, is my market watch. So this is fully customizable to you and your market. You can have it as refined as a zip code or a city, or you can have it as broad as, I pretty much have it as all of King and Pierce County along the Puget Sound, because that's where I specialize in. And by default, I have it selected to single family 7 days. And I'll get into the reason for that in a minute, but you can do also multifamily, vacant land, commercial, farm, all of that stuff here. So when I jump into Market Watch, you see all these different numbers and these different bars. And I'll go into what that means in just a second. But as you can see, I have mine set up as just residential and condos in Washington, King and Pierce. And then I have all the cities that I kind of specialize in and am familiar with selected as well. So I know these areas, I know these cities. So when I'm looking at the listings, I can see, oh, okay, like obviously I'm familiar with these areas and this price and this listing sounds right, or it doesn't, you know what I mean? This one's priced too high, et cetera. So I always like to look at the numbers as well as the kind of ratios of the different bars. So for example, 300 listings, because I've monitored this, every day for a few years now, is not very many. During COVID and stuff like that, you would see numbers offers between 5 and 700 even on the new listings. So listings are definitely down. Back on markets are quite high at 67 as compared to, total listings. So it's about a fifth. Now, the other key indicator I pay attention to is list price reduced. So as you can see, it's rivaling new listings. And during the market cool down of last year, this red bar was actually much higher than the new listings. So most listings were doing a reduction, and that was kind of showing the market correction that we all experienced. Contingent, I never pay much attention to. List price increase, same kind of thing. It's usually just new construction. Contingent, highest I've really only seen is 30 to 40 in a week. Expired is interesting. It did peak a little bit last year, but not too many listings are expiring. And then the other one I look at are obviously pendings and solds. So canceled is still pretty low, not super common in our market. But as you can see, pendings are outnumbering new listings. Now, these are new listings that came on the market in the last 7 days and didn't go pending yet. So there was over that amount that did go pending. So it shows you that there's still pretty good activity in the market. But interestingly, only in the last week, only 300 have sold. So that means a lot of them are falling through, because this is sold activity is data from last month. You know what I mean? So when you look at solds, I also like to look through here and see their sale price to their original price. So this one was 100K under, this one was 15K over. And I'll kind of scroll through these as I'm making phone calls or doing something else, to see where kind of the market was at last month. Because sold, it's kind of a lagging indicator. That's where the market was at, a month ago when they accepted these offers, right? So as you can see, most of them are kind of around the list price, and we'll see that data as well in the next section that I'm going to show you. So I always like to look at that, and then you'll see these bars change over time. So with it being Monday, there's not a lot of new listings that have come on the market. So in 3 days, there's only been 100, but that's why you look at the week. So most of the listings come on Thursday or Friday, and you can see that there. Shannon, does that all make sense?
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think, well, I know you've got another thing you wanted to show us while you're getting to that point. For those that are also kind of getting used to the Northwest MLS app that should be on your phone at this point, the Market Watch, I believe, also kind of comes over. Same thing with like the hot sheets and things like that too. So just makes it easier, I suppose, for us to get the information without having to be on our desktop computer. Thank goodness for that. Yeah.
So definitely get this set up to your liking and then monitor it over time. But it does help to look at the new listings, list price reduced, pendings, and solds, most importantly. And definitely cruise through the pendings sometimes as well to see how many days they're going pending in, right? So this one is a month, 10 days, 5 days, 2 days, 60 days, 8 days. You just kind of look through this and get a rough picture of where the market is at. So the other cool thing that I like to look at on a regular basis, I also do a monthly market report to my clients through my newsletter, is InfoSparks. So right at the top of Matrix, if you click on stats, you click on InfoSparks, and it'll take you to here. So the Northwest MLS is awesome. They keep track of so much data, and it really is helpful to interpret that data and to have it accessible for you and your clients. So as you can see here, you can see what's happened with the median sale price, kind of peaked early on in the year and corrected a little bit on a 12-month average. You can look at new listings over the last year. You can look at homes for sale, closed sales, pending sales, dollar volume, everything. I'm sure we're all feeling this right here because total sales are just way down, as they were compared to last year. We're almost, 80%, 70%. As you can see, they're down 30% in the last 12 months compared to the prior 12 months. So you can see percent of list price received. This was during COVID. It went absolutely crazy. And now it's back down to around 100%. But what I really like to do with this as well is zoom out all the way. And let's look at, there was a minor correction last year, but doesn't even really show up here because of the first half of the year balanced out the last half of the year. So this was during the 2008 crash. You'll see that there, and then a brief correction in 2014. But if you look at sales price, you can see it peaks here in 2007, bottoms out in March of 2012, and has been up pretty much ever since then, and with a minor correction last year. So you can see all that stuff. The other cool thing is to look at monthly data. So you don't want to do that for obviously the whole time. So let's say look at a year. As you can see, prices peaked last May, and then they kind of bottomed out in January, but have been rising ever since. And then they pretty much plateaued since May. So they're right around the same for, this is the entire MLS. Now you can punch in any city you want, any county you want. So again, I specialize in King and Pierce. But let's also say I wanted data for Federal Way. You know, how is Federal Way comparing to the rest of the market? Well, they're all doing pretty much about the same. So you can do monthly data. Rolling 12 months is what most people use. You know, and there's a reason you want to use median instead of average. Average is usually going to be higher because, you know, a $4 million home is going to offset 4 $1 million homes. So that's why we use median instead of average, because it's the 50th home of 100 that sold. It's kind of where the market is generally at. Average is almost always going to be higher, and it's not as good of a metric. But you can see all that stuff here. You can compare different types of properties as well. Let's say you wanted to see the trend for, you know, 1-bedroom condos over the last couple of years. You can see that right here as well. So really helpful to get this kind of data. But what I like more than this, to be honest, is fast stats. So fast stats make all this stuff in a 1-page PDF that you can download. You can send this to your clients. You can print it off. I actually bring 2 of these to each listing appointment that I do, and I'll show you which ones I bring. So let's just look at the entire MLS data last month. Now, keep in mind, August's data is going to be a reflection largely of July's activity. So it's a lagging indicator, but it's pretty much the best we got. So on your market watch, you can see what's happening day to day, week to week, and you can anticipate from that what's happening with the market. So as you can see here, there's a lot of listings going pending, not really a lot coming on the market. Pretty much keeps us in a seller's market, right? When the new listings start to outnumber pendings and solds, that means that we're likely going to be entering a buyer's market, which means there's more inventory and buyers, you know, kind of have the advantage. So if we look at the market data for the entire MLS, I'll go to King and Pierce County next, which you can easily pull those up by clicking them. But I like to do this. So you do most recent, which would be August, and then you can go to any county you want and click view report. It'll open in a new tab. And again, you can easily download these, print them, whatever you want. And I'll do Pierce County as well. So if we look at the entire MLS, you'll see this year, last year, the percent change. Now this is just this month last year. So this month, this year and last year. So you can see new listings are way down. Pending sales, closed sales, they're all down compared to last year across the entire MLS. Days on market is about the same. Median sale price is also about the same. So if you bought last year, you probably have a little bit of equity. Again, average sale price, I almost never look at just because it's so much higher than median sale price. That's because, you know, King County, Snohomish County kind of tip the scale a little bit too much in that. So just look at median sale price. Now, the other key thing I pay attention to is percent of list price received and month supply of inventory. You can also see this data for condos. You can also see this data graphed out here. So as you can see, peak 2007, bottom 2012, peak last year, and a little bit of a correction here, but I don't expect this to repeat just based on the numbers. So days on market's about the same. So when you look at percent of list price received last year, there was a minor correction. So people were paying less than the list price. Now keep in mind, this is percent of list price received, not percent of original price. So I also like to look at percent of original price, which you can see again on the market watch solds. But if someone did a price reduction and they ended up selling it for that reduced price, they would get 100% of their list price received, not of the original price. Now, actually in fast stats, or sorry, not in fast stats, in InfoSparks, you can see percent of original price. And as you can see last year, and even a couple months ago, it did go down a little bit. And actually look at monthly, you can see the first half of the year was way over the list price. And then it's way under the latter half of the year. And then now it's about the same. So that's helpful to know. So that's where the market is at right now. Your sellers can expect to pretty much get their list price. So I like to present them with that information on a listing presentation, for example. Now, month supply of inventory, what this means is if no new homes got listed, all of them are going to sell within that amount of time based on current buyer demand. So as you can see, percent of homes is down 30%. Month supply is about the same, which means buyer demand has also fallen 30%, because less homes are going to take the same amount of time to sell than this amount of homes would take 2 months to sell last year, right? So the thing to remember is 0 to 2 months of inventory, which is largely what we had from 2020 to 2023, or middle of 2022, is a seller's market. 2 to 4 months is a neutral market where, you know, prices stay about the same. Both sides kind of have a fair shake. So if your sellers want to sell and buy, that's a good time to do so. If it's a seller's market, obviously they're going to get a lot on the sale side, but they might have to pay over the list price, you know, and do things like give up inspection demands. On the buy side, prices normally go up. And then if you have 4 or more months of inventory, which we haven't had in years, probably a decade, honestly, then that's when prices go down because it's a buyer's market. So that's what we had from 2008 to 2012. And we've pretty much been in a seller's market, which has caused prices to increase 10% a year for a decade. So when you look at that on the entire MLS, okay, cool. What about King County? Well, King County, I quickly just jumped to these two. Again, percent of list price received is about 100.8. So it's a little bit better than the rest of the MLS and better by 1.9% than last year. But according to month supply of inventory, and there's not a lot of inventory, it's down 30%, but we're still in a seller's market barely in King County, right? And again, you can see all the charts and graphs, and it actually compares it to the rest of the MLS. And then Pierce County, another county I specialize in, it's about the same with 1.7 months supply of inventory. So you present this to your sellers and say, hey, we're technically still in a seller's market. You can expect to get around your list price, not your original price, but your list price. You may have to do a price reduction or so, at least one, which is what a lot of listings are doing, at least one price reduction before they go pending. So I like to show them that. And then the other thing I show them, so I'll show them their county, and then I'll show them their zip code. So again, in Fast Stats, let me go back to that real quick. Fast Stats is right here at the top of InfoSparks. You can click, let's say it's Pierce County, let's say my listing's in Graham. I would generate the Graham report as well. So then you do the macro, which would be the county, and then the micro, which would be their zip code. And then I compare that with their CMA and say, hey, based on, you know, your type of home, it's performing about the same as the market, worse or better. So in this specific zip code, it's about 100% of list price received with 1.9 months of inventory, pretty much on track with Pierce County. So I like to show them that as well. One last cool thing I'll show you guys. And again, this has a wealth of information. I can't cover all of it in 30 minutes, but it's got a bunch of cool stuff, is Market View. So Market View, this is useful for looking up your partner agent. So if you are going to go into a deal with an agent, look them up first, see how many transactions they're doing. You can also see all of their data in the InfoSparks by punching in their lag number at the top. So that's me, for example, right? You can see all of my data, et cetera, or any agent you can compare, et cetera. But when you go to Market View, you can see who the top agent is year to date, or I like to do the rolling 12 months. So for example, Son Yang is the #1 agent in the last 12 months. She's done 108.5 units, most of which were sale side, which means buyer side. And then there's list side. You can also do top agent by units just by clicking the number here. It'll organize them all by units. So this agent actually was #1 in sale side units of 128. They hardly listed at all and did similar volume as well. So you can see all that stuff for yourself. Rolling 12 months. The other cool thing you can do, you can see where you're at in the market by clicking rank. Now total producing brokers is 23,092. So you can search yourself here, you know, and click yourself, see where you're at, and then divide that number by 23,092, and you'll get how you're doing in compared to the rest of the market. You can do list side, you can do volume side, you can do unit side, you can do total volume. There's all this stuff. You can look at firms. So any data you want, you can find. So we're near the top here. I gotta find us. Where did we go?
Oh, we're right up in the
I'll
top,
type us in
Tristan.
actually. Did
Yeah.
I scroll past? Oh,
Oh
we're in
yeah, I
here.
sure
Yes, I
did.
scrolled past it. There we are. Yeah, so done almost $1 billion in volume in the last 12 months, which is really, really good. So yeah, you can see all that stuff, which is really helpful because then you can see if the agent is a newer agent, are they really experienced? Are they buy side? Are they list side heavy? You know, did they just get their license? Are they only selling vacant land? Are they selling condos? You can see all that stuff. I mean, you can also look them up in Matrix under the agent roster, and then you can punch them into the general with the listing co-list broker, and you can do it that way. But Market View is a quicker way to do all that.
Yeah. Well, I think too, so I think I can speak for most of real estate agents is that we're very competitive, right? So when you're looking at being in like a niche little market, I know one of our agents, she works in Diamond Point, Lynette, if she's here. And for her, she wanted to be the #1 agent in that specific little zip code that was right there. And so if you're looking at, you know, how can you compete against the other agents that are selling in that area, it's good to know what your competition is doing, you know, because they're going to be going on the same listing appointments as you in many cases. They're going to be competing for you, knowing that the number of listings is actually going down. So
Yep.
know the competition, right?
Right.
So question for you, Tristan, I suppose is, so all of this data that you've got, I think if you can show everybody, how can you share
Yep.
that from the market view? How can you share that to your sellers? Those types of graphs and things like that that you were pulling with the rolling numbers and things like that too. So that InfoSparks is great because you can just download and go. But these
Yeah.
I think are.
So through InfoSparks, you can also just click print right here or share. So whatever it is that you're trying to show, most of the data that's best to share is going to be through fast stats. I would say it's the easiest to digest. But let's say you wanted to share, you know, that closed sales are way down this year compared to last year. I don't know, over the last 3 years, you would just, you know, chart that out. I like to do the rolling 12 months because again, monthly looks like this. Very hard to interpret what's going on a month to month because real estate has seasonality to it. So that's why you want to do the rolling 12 months and you get a nice clear graph, right? So then you would just click print. You can download a PDF. And so I'll click view PDF. And then here's what it would look like. It would have your information, your contact information, your link, your website, whatever. You can customize all that, your profile picture, and then it'll be an easily digestible graph that you could share on Facebook. You could email it to your clients. Again, some of this stuff I like to bring with me on listing presentations, just to quickly show where the market's at and where their home is faring compared to the market.
Yeah. And so are you using this then also? So obviously for appointments where you're meeting with sellers, but what about buyers and other types of prospecting efforts? Are you introducing this somehow?
That is a great question. And yes, I do. The main one I like to share with buyers is also the percent of list price received and the month supply of inventory. So then I can go, hey, look, this is what type of market we're in. And I tell them this, you know, it's my job. I have 2 jobs, right? The functionary duty to get them a house, and then the fiduciary duty to get them the best house at the lowest price with the most repairs, right? So I don't want them to pay any more than they have to. But for example, you know, last year, early March, right, when everyone was paying 10% over asking, I can pull that up on the chart and show them, hey, I don't want you to pay 10% over asking, but that is what's required to get a deal in this market. So how I would do that is, for example, I would go to Fast Stats and I would go to, you know, entire MLS, and let's just go March of 2022. If I click view report, the percent of list price received on average across the entire state was 108.4. It ended up being like, I think the highest I saw was 114 for King County last year. Absolutely outrageous. So it's not you saying, hey, you should pay 50K over asking because you don't want them to pay 50K over asking, but it's showing them that they have to pay 50K over asking in order to even stand a chance in this market. And sometimes I would even peruse through the recent solds as well and show them, hey, look, here are 10 homes. You can even refine it by their home criteria, kind of like you're doing a CMA, and reverse engineer it to show them, hey, for this home criteria, all the homes that you liked, I track them as well. I add them to a cart, any listings that my clients have shown. And, you know, I see, hey, all of them needed 50K over to sell. or to be bought. So you would have to do the same. So yeah, I do integrate it on buyers consults as well.
Yeah. And it's smart too. I mean, seeing the numbers like this, it's like, okay, well, if we're going up 110% in this entire MLS or whatever, it also affects your budget. You know, if you're going in as a new buyer, first time home buyer, which is accounting for 26% of our buyer pool right now, you know, that's good to know. It's like, okay, if we're going to have to compete, you're going to need to know what that budget is. Are we looking in the 500? Or are we looking in the 550? I mean, that could be, you don't want your buyers to feel discouraged in that way. So making sure that the searches reflect what the market is doing.
Right.
Okay, cool. So I think this is really cool too. So I know Tristan's not the only one that is using Info Sparks in this way. These things are great. I mean, I think you mentioned that you're including these in a newsletter or something like that. Is that right, Tristan?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you're not the only one I've heard that's been doing stuff like that. I have one of my other agents who she will door knock with these, and as long as you can speak to them, just like Tristan is explaining it, it's like it makes total sense. It's like, okay, I know exactly what the market is doing, and the MLS, our Northwest MLS, does a really good job of providing these every single month, and these are resources that we don't have to pay extra for. So use the resources in that way that makes it easy for us. Download it, send it an email to your clients, you know, regurgitate it in that way so they can understand. I think it's super helpful in that way. Cool. So I think that's all the questions I had for you, Tristan. Thank you so much. You are awesome. I did want to open it up to see if anybody else had questions for our stats guru here. Candace, is there any questions that came through in the chat that we needed to ask him?
I don't see anything, but I think this is also great information to have at open houses. Literally, you guys, you just got the 3 clock hour training in 30 minutes that they have on the MLS. This was great. I literally just took it last week just to brush up and make sure I wasn't missing anything on having information for your buyers and sellers. A lot of times we get questions like, you know, when people ask me what's going on with the market, you know, being able to study this or just even at a glance on a market watch is so helpful to be able to respond to those questions. Well, let me tell you what's happening. We're still selling. This is still a seller's market, right? But as a buyer, you're not necessarily having to pay over list price for a property, you know, so it's great information to get to know. And if you don't do anything else, at least set up your market watch so you know what's happening in your market, in your areas. If you're going to do an open house, this is great information to have at the open houses as well.
Yeah, and I think I'll echo that too. It's like when you're working sphere of influence, which I think the majority of us are all doing, the ones that are successful are the ones that have dived into their sphere of influence in the last year. And you know, the top questions that people ask just naturally and organically when you're interacting with them day to day is, you know, obviously, who are you? What do you do for a living? But then number 3, once they figure out that you're a real estate agent, what's the third question they always ask is, how is the market? How is business? Right. And so being able to answer that intelligently, like Tristan has, is what will set you apart. There are a lot of agents that are not doing the work in that way. You know, we've all heard the stats, I think, this year, but being able to be positive and optimistic, like Tristan is approaching his business, I think is something that will turn into, you know, the longevity of being in the industry. So yeah, perfect. Thank you, Candace. Cool. Well, I think that's everything I have for you. If you had any other questions, feel free to unmute. But this was lovely. This was great. I'm so glad we got this recorded so other people can view and listen to this too, Tristan. So thank you so much for the time. And I think that's everything we've got. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, you guys. We will touch base this next week. I know we've got some lead generation stuff coming through later this week and next week, so stay tuned for those. And don't forget, we've also got you know, the law of agency stuff is going to be changing in January 1. So if you're not in the habit of using buyer agency agreements, make sure that you are trying to introduce that before January 1 starts and takes us by surprise. So if you need some help with that, or you're wanting to set up a time so we can talk strategy of how to implement that, let us know. We can certainly set up a time to see how we can implement that with your business too. So thank you so much, Tristan. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Fun.
I appreciate it.
30 minutes goes by super fast. So
it does. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, you guys. We will talk to you this next week.